A river flowing through a sunlit forest, the majesty of a snow-covered mountain, an ocean cove that shelters birds and sea lions. How could you possibly put a price on what the natural world has to offer? How do you decide the value of a bird? Or a flower? How could you quantify the worth of our environment? Why would you even want to? Is it possible to reduce such complexity, beauty, and diversity to one single number? If so, should that number be small, like the price of groceries? Or should it be large, like the value of an entire country's economy? How do you put a price on nature? To apply economics to nature, it is important to understand what economics is. It's about more than inflation and interest rates. At its heart is the study of scarcity and human behavior. It explains why we make the decisions that we do in a world of limited resources.
When we sort of strip away all of the idiosyncrasies of an individual mind, an individual life, a lot of it does boil down to what is best for me. In economics, we assume that economic actors are self-interested, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're selfish, but people want the best for themselves.
Why put a dollar value on the environment? Isn't it kind of tacky to put a price tag on something intrinsically priceless and immeasurably beautiful?
So the idea of putting a dollar value on natural resources, on environmental services, on environmental damages is incredibly important. When you don't put some type of metric on the value of either nature as a whole or certain characteristics that nature provides that help us, then those ultimately get ignored. Those get coded as a $0 value.
How can economics address the problem of climate change? The Earth is warming due to the increase of human-caused carbon dioxide emissions. This has led to sea level rise and more intense wildfires, storms, and heat waves. Science has shown that natural resources like oceans and forests can reduce the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. Economic methods, alongside scientific research, can help us quantify the damage caused by CO2 emissions. This measure is called the social cost of carbon, and it can be used in policy and business to inform decisions about environmental impact.
The social cost of carbon is essentially in dollar values, how much harm is being done to society by having CO2 accumulate in the atmosphere, right? Per, like, say, ton of CO2 accumulated.
Economists and scientists, including experts at the University of California, San Diego, and Scripps Institution of Oceanography, have researched the question of how to calculate the social cost of carbon. There are two main ways to do this. The first is statistical estimation, which relies on historical data sets from both the economic and scientific worlds. Researchers analyze variables such as temperature and pollution levels, as well as energy use and health outcomes. The second way is mathematical modeling, which combines theoretical frameworks of ecological and economic systems. It aims to forecast changes in social welfare under different climate scenarios.
The best estimates of the social cost of carbon will combine both approaches. They'll take the estimated regression coefficients and then feed them into very complex climate models that include economic agents and some assumption of how the behavior of the economic agents feeds into emissions and how that will go back into the environment, society. And so those very complex models, the ones that capture the core aspects of meteorology, different aspects of the natural world and firm behavior plus us, Those will be the best estimates of the social cost of carbon.
Economics helps us quantify the monetary damage of greenhouse gases so we can account for them in business and policy decisions. Economics can also help us quantify the benefits of natural resources, like mangrove forests.
So an example I could point to is my colleague Octavio Alberto's work. And he started off doing studies of the economic valuation of Mexican mangrove forests, which are coastal wetlands. And they turn out to have this significant value for fisheries. And the Mexican government didn't know that there was that kind of connection. And so when they found out, they instituted legal protections for mangrove forests. And so that's a very direct tie-in, where the economic numbers moved essentially a government policy. I would ask my economics colleagues, to think about that broader spectrum of ecosystem services and what those services might be valued at. And I know that that's a difficult thing to do because sometimes it's very hard to put an economic value on something.
Translating natural value to monetary value gives nature a seat and leverage at tables whose currency is money.
I think that being able to quantify environmental value is useful because otherwise nature doesn't have a voice.
To me, nature and humans are not necessarily separate. As a species, we've made a lot of radical changes to the earth, but ultimately we are part of the earth.
Economic tools integrate the natural world into human decision-making. By putting a monetary value to the social cost of carbon or the benefit of an ecosystem service, we can make better choices. Assigning a price to nature gives it a powerful voice. And when it comes to the critical subject of climate change, that power is priceless.